Welcome to the Bladtcast, our annual Academy Awards post show. For some reason, we used to do these on Sunday night, actually, after the awards. Boy, it's a lot nicer doing it on Monday morning. I'm Christian Bladt, as always, and for this show, as always, joined by Christian Toto of Hollywood In Toto.com. Christian, thanks for keeping the tradition alive.
Yeah, thanks for making me watch that.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think that it's interesting. You know, the show itself. There's, in theory, I like the idea that they didn't rush people through their speeches. You know, it's a little bit of a roll of the dice, but there have been so many good speeches where you hear the music playing in the background and you're like, oh, come on. Now, there are definitely times where people talk way too long. Was it just last year that Joaquin Phoenix was talking about whether or not we should have milk? You know, and I didn't even remember that until we saw him on stage last night. I'm like, oh yeah, he had a really crazy thing last year. That was a whole pandemic ago. You know, it's so I think look, trying to do different things. You know what I did like? Don't show the clips. It's fine. Either you've seen the movie or you haven't. You're not going to see the clip and go, oh, I should probably see that based on those 9 seconds. But I don't know. It's hard to find high points of the show, you know? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
They played the Electric Company theme when Rita Moreno graced the stage.
That was actually pretty great. Yeah, that was it.
3.5 hours.
Yeah, I like everyone, I am also impressed with Glenn Close's knowledge of debut, but apparently that came out of rehearsal, so that was not the most genuine moment that they had. But I feel like they just recreated it, but whatever the case. But they didn't know she was going to dance, so you got that, and she's you can't even talk about. For years with the Emmys, the daytime Emmys, it was always how Susan Lucci never won. But Glenn Close still doesn't have an Oscar. She continues to not have them, you know? So I don't even think I'm aware of what it was she was nominated for this year. But
Hillbilly Elegy.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, with a title like that, how could it not win an Oscar? But I've seen images of what she looked like in it, and you got to give it up to anybody that can really take on the one of those sort of transformative roles. Like Charlize Theron, obviously being the best example of that for Monster. But
I think she made Charlize Theron look beautiful.
Yeah, I think you're right. So now you and I are usually very upfront about this. There's a lot of movies we haven't seen, but let's talk about the ones we have seen. Mm-hmm. I watched Nomadland last week. I hadn't seen it, but basically when I realized that if I'd wanted to watch Promising Young Woman, I would have had to pay for it. And Nomadland was on Hulu, which I have. I'm like, well, I guess I'm watching Nomadland. But I also knew I should watch that because I knew it was nominated in so many categories. And look, I think Frances McDormand is always going to give you that. And she is so understated in that movie. And it's a lot of facial expressions where you feel like you do know what her character's actually thinking. So I think it's a good character part for her. It's kind of interesting because I think that some of it was shot documentary style where people didn't realize they were making a movie. You know, some of these nomads are actual, people who live that way. That is kind of interesting. But I tweeted this last week. I'm still trying to decide which I'm more horrified by. Her nude scene or watching her shit in a bucket. And I would like to unsee both of those things, but I can't. And I don't think that those took away from the movie. But I thought it's one of those things where you see it and you go like, yeah, that's a nice movie. It's not like this amazing tour de force where I'm like so impressed by it, but I thought it was good. What did you think of Nomadland, Christian?
Yeah, I think I liked it more than you, but I agree. It's not a movie I'm going to rush back to see, except for the bucket moment, which I will probably have.
The bucket scene, that should be a meme for sure. Yeah.
She should have brought the bucket to the when she came on stage. By the way,
I'm just surprised she didn't. By the way,
I mean, first you howl and then you raise the bucket aloft. That's kind of the move. Yeah, listen, it was one of my top 5 or 10 last year. I have to confess right away, a couple things. Pandemic changed how I look at movies. I have been watching thrillers and horror movies and B movies. I have almost zero appetite for really good movies, and I know that's not what a critic is supposed to confess, but that's just my personal headspace. I've had some sort of health woes in my family, the pandemic, having 2 kids scrambling around the house for 12 months. So I wasn't in the mood for Remains of the Day. I just wasn't. So I didn't see as many Oscar bait movies, but I did see Nomadland, and I saw a few others as well. But yeah, it's, to me, Oscar Best Picture is something you watch every couple of years because it's such a good movie and you want to relive it. I don't want to critique the movie because it's good, and Frances McDormand is just great. I don't know if I want to run through that again. I don't know. And does that mean it's shouldn't be Best Picture? I don't know. It's just my taste.
Well, look, I think there's a few ways to look at that. As great as Schindler's List is, I have never rewatched it because I just don't want to relive it. You know, I mean, I'm taking literally nothing away from that movie. There are some movies. Look, there's movies that I just haven't seen, and you know, Passion of the Christ is one. I just don't need to watch Jesus get beaten up for like 2 hours, and you know, and this was long before we shouldn't have been watching Mel Gibson movies. You know, I was just like, I don't know. I mean, I went to Sunday school. I know that story, and I'm glad they made a movie about it. I hope people liked it, and yeah, this is not on the scale, obviously, of Schindler's List, but it's like I just don't want to go back. I don't want to hang out with Fern ever again. That's her character, you know, and I don't want to be in that van, you know. It's interesting.
I can still smell that van. It's not
little right. Well, it smells like that bucket, but and I think that I think it's it's impressive in terms of her performance. And glad that Chloe Zhao won, mostly because now Disney gets to, when they release the Eternal superhero movie in November, from Academy Award winner. And look, when you hear things like, she's only the second woman to ever win as director, you're like, oh, I'm sure there's other ones, but good that she won. You know, I'm not trying to take anything away from her. I'm not trying to take anything away from Catherine Bigelow. Her Hurt Locker I thought was great. But, you're just like, oh, wow, this is the second time that's happened. But I think it again, it's a nice movie, but I look, out of the ones that were nominated, I don't know that I have the clear cut favorite. For people who know, my wife is Chinese American, so she was very interested in Minari. Again, nice movie. I think it's very well done. We'll talk about her in a minute, but the grandmother from that film won for supporting actress. She's great in that movie. It's really well done. She has a stroke in the movie. Spoiler alert. Sorry. When a character has a stroke, there's a few ways you can play it. And I think that they had the sort of right approach to it. She wasn't still there. She wasn't as there as she is in the beginning of the movie, but it's also, it's also, she's not like completely gone, which, look, my grandmother had a stroke. It felt more realistic. A lot of times it just means like, okay, you've had something happen to your character. Now you can stop acting. I thought there's some, the great performances by the kids in Minari. The little boy is just, he's adorable. He's funny. He pees in his grandmother's tea at one point, and I've got a 5-year-old. Christian, you've got kids. I would never rule out my kid thinking that was a good idea. I hope that he's never brought me a pea sweetened beverage, but so I thought that that felt like a movie that wasn't going to win. In terms of the other ones that I've seen, I saw Mank. And I know that Mank, it's almost like, well, for me, I love Citizen Kane. I love stories about Orson Welles. I do think that it's obviously it's very well made. I think Gary Oldman was the man for the job to play Mankiewicz in that movie. I don't know how great it was. It was good. It was fun for me. I love living that stuff. There's the HBO TV movie with Liev Schreiber, RKO 281, where he plays Wells. I mean, I love that movie too, so that was definitely in my sweet spot. And Christian, I believe you were going to watch it over the weekend. Did you get a chance to see Mank?
I watched about 3/4 of it. And I have to say, I had no desire to watch the rest of it. It kind of was running out of time.
I feel that.
It felt like exquisitely crafted. I loved Oldman's approach, a little hammy, a little over the top,
Sure,
right in sync. The dialogue was super. I mean, there were snappier lines in that movie than maybe a dozen other films, but it felt like an art to me. I didn't feel swept up by the movie making process. I didn't get swept up in his character, his romantic arcs or lack thereof.
Yeah.
It felt very clinical, sort of. I just didn't move me. And it was funny because you're watching a movie about this film that people still hail as the greatest of all time. You could argue back and forth.
Yeah, of course.
And about a great writer and a great storyteller. And I'm thinking, well, this doesn't feel like great storytelling to me. This feels like great craft.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to summarize it. I did think Amanda Seyfried was great in that. That's a really tough part to play because, it's like, she's not the idiot that everybody thought she was, but she's well aware of the fact that she's also not a rocket scientist, and I thought that seeing her as a real person, actually, I thought was nice. And I haven't seen a lot of her, in all honesty, not in a while, I felt like that wasn't going to win. The only other thing, I know at Hollywood In Toto, a lot of times, you guys focus on the politics of it. I felt like the politics in that movie didn't bother me so much because it's a real part of the story. It's real part of his decision making. When it feels crammed in there, where you're like, where especially like something that's factually based, and you're like, I think this person never even voted, but you want to make a big deal out of it. The other movie that I saw, which was of course very political, was The Trial of the Chicago 7, which is on Netflix. And it's got a great cast. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is great in there as the prosecuting attorney, and Sacha Baron Cohen is Abby Hoffman. It's definitely, you feel like he's playing like a character, but he's good in it. And there's a like a glorified cameo from Michael Keaton, and he's fantastic in it. So. However, it is, of course, like the most heavy-handedest of political stories because, again, it's a real story, and it's Aaron Sorkin. So you want to talk about your snappy banter. Oh, it's in there, but yeah, but it's also it's also like painted with a paint roller and not a brush. It's so he's definitely trying to make sure we all learn like we're supposed to from it, but. There's things about that I didn't know everything about that trial and the Democratic Convention in 1968. So it was like one of those things where it's interesting. Maybe you would do better to watch a documentary, but I also felt like that wasn't going to win Best Picture. But of these other ones, I hear so much about the Sound of Metal movie. That sounds like one that I feel like I would check out because of the performance. Judas and the Black Messiah is about the Black Panthers. That is also on Netflix, so I literally have no excuse for not watching that. But and Promising Young Woman, I already talked about how I didn't want to spend $20 to watch it in my house. It's like $10 to watch it in my house. Maybe I like Carey Mulligan. I've liked her in other things. And The Father is that movie that most people, I think, didn't realize was a movie until Anthony Hopkins won for Best Actor. But that was one that we saw a clip. And I'll tell you, from that clip, you're like, there's Anthony Hopkins being Anthony Hopkins,
I have to disagree with one thing you said very early on here. I want the clips. And I think that first of all, if you got good movies, you got to show them off. And I think that's important. But also, this was a particular year, and they said every polling data said no one has heard of these movies. So let's see them. And it's funny. I watched a clip from Judas, which I did not see. And thinking, oh, I think I kind of want to see that. Like, it was Daniel Kaluuya. I always screw up his name. Yeah,
me too. Yeah.
He just seemed
it's like, it's not Kahlua like the drink, but it's very close to that.
It's close, yeah. But even with the, I'm so disappointed with Sacha Baron Cohen in many ways. But I think when he's on his game, I think he's a terrific actor. And just seeing a little tiny snippet of him from the trial film, I'm like, oh, I might want to see more of him, because even just having him not do the English accent was kind of interesting. And I just think he's got a lot of talent, which I don't know if he often taps. So
Yeah, I mean
want more clips?
the fact that I'm not taking away from Rami Malek, but the fact that we didn't get to see him as Freddie
I
Mercury
agree. I agree.
in an honest portrayal of Freddie Mercury's life, which the guys from Queen, look, they're not in that business. They still had the Queen's still out there. They wanted to tell a movie that's probably going to help ticket sales when people can finally buy tickets to concerts again. And I think that when you see him, I mean, even in Les Mis a few years ago, you see him and stuff, and I would like to see. Honestly, I'd love to see the dramatic Sacha Baron Cohen role.
I agree.
Which, I'm hoping they don't have him like I don't feel like he'd play like a serial killer or something. Just like an interesting drama. And Trial of Chicago 7's got plenty of dramatic moments, but his character is there to be funny. So he's perfect in that way. But I agree that I think he's an actor that we could stand to see a lot more of. And you are making a great point that this year in particular would be the year to really show some of these clips, especially because and they did for Best Picture. But when they have names like Nomadland and Minari, like if you didn't show clips from Titanic and you hadn't seen it, you're like, okay, but I bet I know what that's about. I
could do the math on that.
Shakespeare in Love. I think I have a sense for what that movie might look like, at least.
I mean, it's amazing that in a socially distanced era where you have an award show, you're struggling to put people together. A clip reel, that seems like the biggest no-brainer on the planet, and they didn't go there. I'm shocked, and even the In Memoriam, which got a political intro, which just bizarre, and they rushed through that. I'm like, oh gosh, these are giants we lost this year. It was just shocking, all the people. I mean, I think that's sort of a typical reaction, but it's still, you want to kind of luxuriate in these names and these talents who are gone, and it felt like it was a sprint as opposed to the rest of the night where we're saying, well, Fred Smith fell in love with movies because he watched Star Wars. Yeah, duh. Yeah. The entire world got into movies because of Star Wars. That's the lamest.
Yeah, I mean, and like I was reading something in Variety this morning with one of the producers, and it was like once they picked that song, that was the pace of it. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe don't pick that song. I mean, like, why did you need that song? And look, they made the decision to not have the performances, which I don't know. I don't know that there were songs that I feel like we were cheated out of not hearing, but. That's another way to cut things down. I think that the only thing I liked was not playing people off and just saying like, oh, they're like later in the show, they started telling them like, hey, can you keep it short? We're starting to run long. Yeah. And just, most people I think will, but I feel like they're going to probably go back to, the way it used to be once they're in the studio with the orchestra playing people off and all that.
Do you think that they will go back to a host? Because that night, oh my gosh, that night needed a funny person so badly.
Yeah, I think that the hosts help, and sometimes I can't remember which shows have done this. You've had the shows where they don't have the host, but they do have a comedian come out and do like a monologue and kind of set up the night.
Yeah.
I think that if you don't have a host, definitely start off with someone funny. And it's, certainly no knock on Regina King. It's sort of like, and I'm all for like interesting, but it didn't really set the right tone for it, and I feel like, look, you're doing the Academy Awards in a train station. I feel like there's comedy to be mined there, even if it's like taped pieces from like, Brad Pitt shows up last Sunday by accident and he's, ends up interacting with people at the train station. That's just off the top of my head.
I think they should have had Ricky Gervais come on as a surprise guest, look around, put up an impish smile, and then walk off. I think that would have been like the night.
that would have been nice. It's true. I would have liked that.
Or he just too easy and just like left,
Yeah, that's true. I think that it was hard to kind of get into the swing of things for the night. And then, for years, Best Picture has always been the last category. And I'll admit that I did not watch it in real time, and I fast forwarded through a lot. And I was like, "Oh my God, did I fast forward through Best Actor and Best Actress?"
No, you didn't.
And then no, I didn't. Yeah, but I thought I did. And I think that people are upset about the Best Actor category, but I'm wondering how many of those people saw won all of those movies. People who are tweeting about it. How many people actually saw Ma Rainey's? Ma Rainey's. I'm going to get the title wrong now because it's not in front of me. But Black Bottom, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That's the title. And because they love Chadwick Boseman. I mean, Chadwick Boseman was great. I mean, he's Black Panther. He was Jackie Robinson. He was James Brown. You know, I mean, plenty of other roles too. But it's like, yeah, that guy could do a lot. And it's like, well, sure, you might want him to win, but the people who watch these movies might have just been like, yeah, but Anthony Hopkins was great in this movie. And this is one of those times where I'm like, oh, if I had seen these movies, I could say with authority that like, here's what I think, you know? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that I should be upset about it. And I know Chadwick Boseman won some of the earlier awards, but until I see the movies, I'll be like, okay, look, I know Anthony Hopkins is a great actor, you know? And the movies that I did see are Mank and Minari, and I could see them giving it to Gary Oldman in some years because it's a very Oscar-y performance from a guy that I think has given a lot of very varied performances, you know. But Stephen Yeun in Minari, it was just more that it was great that he got nominated, but it wasn't such a great movie. His part isn't the best part in the movie. Frances McDormand, that was I would say the least surprising thing of the whole night. Nomadland winning was, I think, not surprising, but there's a couple other things that could have won and I wouldn't have been shocked. But I don't think that I really felt like anybody else was going to win, you know, the best actress.
It was amazing that I guess the conventional wisdom is that the organizers set up the best actor as the end because they wanted the Chadwick Boseman posthumous award to be this sort of, you know, emotional moment. And I get that. But I mean, these things are so, there's such a lack of surprise with these events. Even Glenn Close's shtick was sort of which I didn't know. That's amazing. So, I mean, the fact that it was unexpected, I thought was good, but the fact that he wasn't going to be there or be on camera was that. Choice.
Yeah, and look, they
really way to end the night. So
they definitely rolled the dice, and it came up snake eyes, as they say. But obviously, it does prove the fact that they do not know what the winners are ahead of time, because somebody could have been like, "You might not want that one to be last." Tony Hopkins isn't coming here, and you know, some people were mad that he wasn't there. I'm like, think about how old he is. And for the last year, you've been telling people to stay inside and not go places, especially if you're older. And I don't even know how old he's in his 80s. Yeah, you know,
maybe 83.
Yeah, Anthony Hopkins doesn't have to go anywhere if he doesn't want to. Yeah. And if he didn't want to go to an award show, that's fine. Now they could have, you know, sent to somebody with a Steadicam into his driveway, because I wouldn't have wanted to ask him to get on Zoom. You know, that's crazy. Yeah. Dr. Lecter, you've won. But you know, but Frances McDormand, that again, not really surprising. And that is actually the only one of those movies that I've seen. But
by the way, I want to steal a line from a sort of a cyber friend of mine, Kyle Smith from National Review. He I think he said the evening was more depressing than the sorrow and the pity.
In terms of supporting actresses, supporting actress, now her name is Yoon Yo-jung. I had mentioned earlier, she was great in Minari. Olivia Colman for The Father did not win. Amanda Seyfried did not win for Mank. Glenn Close did not win for Hillbilly Elegy. A movie that I know that you and I disagree on, but on the whole, I will say that Borat 2, nowhere near as good as the first one, but I would say that the bright spot in it is Maria Bakalova, who played his daughter. And just in terms of the scripted stuff with him and her, that's good. But sending this unknown, you know, relatively young actress, I think she's in her early 20s, out to some of these situations and how she performs, you know, in terms of in those situations, you know, sometimes with him, sometimes on her own, you know, and I felt like that was the most impressive performance that I saw. Now, I know you didn't like that movie, and we'll talk about the movie in a moment, but what did you think of her? Did you see I also have friends that turned off the movie because when you watch things at home, you don't have to actually watch till the end. Did you watch all of Borat 2, or did you give up at some point?
Okay, here's my confession. I love Borat, the first one, so much. I've watched it again and again. and my kids are young. I'm not gonna say their age, but they're youngish.
Yeah, sure.
We watched Borat together, the first one.
The first one. Okay.
The first one. Again, wildly inappropriate, a horrible parenting move, but my wife was out of town. I wanted to kind of razzle dazzle the boys. I wanted to be the hero. They loved it. So naturally, when Borat 2 comes along, I'm like, well, I'm already a horrible parent. Let's go through it too. I'm pretty sure one or two of the boys slept before the ending.
Yeah.
I watched the whole thing, and I thought the beginning was rather funny. I'm like, oh, all right, I'm back. I've got it. I thought this was a bad idea, but I'm enjoying this. And then the laughs to me completely dried up. And you listen, I'm no Trump, red hat guy. Like he's the greatest. You can't make fun of him. I don't care. You can make fun of anyone.
Yeah, of course.
To me, Trump and Pence jokes and Rudy Giuliani, unless you've got a real sort of clever, interesting, worthy spin, I'm bored. I mean, our culture has been flooded with those jokes. It just felt like he had an agenda, and the laughs weren't there. I just really And the first movie was in your face and ugly at times, and raw and silly and outrageous and button pushing. This is just, I mean, a couple scenes are outrageous early on, especially with her. It just seemed like, oh gosh, you just can't. It was lightning in the bottle. He couldn't do it again, and he didn't.
Yeah.
But he had other plans in mind. So.
Yeah, I think that the agenda was very clear, and then in some of the stuff, there's a moment where they're at a county fair, and the idea is getting Sacha Baron Cohen. As Borat, but Borat then dressing up as other characters so people didn't recognize him.
Right.
I feel like that was probably out of necessity. So I'm not going to fault that tactic, because I think that a lot of people, if Borat shows up at something, they're like, oh, I've seen that movie.
Which is one reason why you don't make the movie, by the way.
Right. Right. Exactly. Like make it, and when some of these clips started leaking online, people thought it was another season of his Showtime show. That he did a couple of years ago. So I think people, because again, nobody thought that, like, well, how could you possibly make another one? I would say that as much as I love the first Borat, his movie Bruno was so far and away like not entertaining. And this felt a little bit more like Bruno at times, but I found it to be much better. The county fair moment when he's singing the song about the Wuhan flu, I don't know how great and how funny it is, but I had that song stuck in my head for like 2 weeks. So it was very effective in that way, but that scene is kind of just right out of the first one when he's getting the people at the country music bar to sing the Throw the Jews Down the Well song. So he's really just doing the same thing, but he's making a political statement with it. But I thought she was great. And he's said that he's not going to do any more Borat. So, let's just hope that that's true. A friend of mine who I was a page with at NBC, her name's Erica Rivanoia, and she's worked on so many things. She works on South Park. She's done so many shows. She was actually there nominated for writing for that. So, I think on the personal level, I would have liked to see my friend win an Oscar, but I also did not expect, I didn't think that was going to win. I thought that, there was a chance that the actress could have won, but I didn't really expect that to win its writing award. And, poor Sacha Baron Cohen and Isla Fisher, they're standing there in Sydney, Australia, like outside, and they keep cutting to them and they don't win anything. And I'm like, they're just hanging outside for like 4 hours or, maybe they went outside when it was going to be his category, but that was sort of a weird thing, when you saw the people at like the British Film Institute, and I don't think anybody won there. I don't think anybody spoke and accepted from the British Film Institute. I might be wrong, but I don't think anybody did.
One thing I want to mention about this, I think because of the pandemic and the rules were changed, it makes it really hard to produce a show like this. I get that. And there are certain concessions you have to make. But I feel like they made a lot of artistic choices to kind of exaggerate the fact that we're all alone now. Like they had, the director of Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's in an empty theater with I don't want to see him in an empty theater. Yeah. We're used to empty theaters. I'm exhausted by empty theaters. I want to see people. Maybe a tight shot of him, doing his spiel about what it is to be a director. I feel like there were a lot of like Bryan Cranston walking through an empty, was it the Dolby where
Yeah,
they normally have it?
yeah, where they usually have it, the Dolby Theater. Yeah,
Why don't you hit us over the head and say your life is not the same and you're miserable and alone? Because I
yeah,
want a little escapism. I want to laugh. I want to be taken away from my
yeah.
rotten life. And all you did was shove it in my face like a grapefruit. I mean, I just don't understand it. I really don't. At least the Union Station, the set was kind of Art Deco and interesting. And
Yeah, it was cool. Yeah, I mean,
there,
I've been there to one, take a train, but also I years ago, the musician Beck played in like a hall there. Like I went to a concert there, so it's like it can be a really cool place.
Yeah.
So I thought it was a good choice when they wanted to space things out a little bit more. But then it seemed like they were all kind of crammed in together. So I was like, well, then what was the point of that?
And
like,
to me, it also reminded me of all the sort of conflicting information about COVID. So they were all socially distanced. They said that they were tested and retested and double tested and triple quadruple tested. I'm going to guess that Frances McDormand's got her shots. I'm 52. I've got both my shots. She's older than me. I'm assuming that she may have access to a slightly better healthcare system than I have. And yet she's there looking miserable with her mask on. Then the mask comes off. I'm like, it drives me crazy. Like, okay, does the virus not know when you're,
it was inconsistent. I think when they had the Emmys back in September, it was a lot more cut and dried. First of all, like everybody was at home, or except for the cast of Schitt's Creek, who like quarantined and rented out, which was a really wise move on their part to like rent out a restaurant, because they won the whole first half hour of the Emmys was them winning everything.
That's right.
So, but in any case, and so then it was a little bit more inconsistent. I mean, I know enough people who've worked on film sets where it doesn't surprise me that, the people speaking weren't wearing masks, but, ushers and things were. I'm like, yeah, I get all that. But you're right. There were people who, when were they wearing them and when weren't they? And then, it's not the Golden Globes where you're eating, so you don't really, if you're not accepting, you don't really have to take it off. But I don't know. Maybe they just felt like it looked better. I agree. It was a lot of mixed signals. And I assume that a lot of those people, look, let's put it this way. Everyone in that room who wanted to have vaccines at this point has them. Now, there might be people who don't have them for whatever reasons. But so it's probably a large number of the people had them, but I'm sure there's exceptions, So, do some of the foreign actors have the AstraZeneca, and then you don't trust them, because it's like, I don't know about that. So yeah, it's there. I don't know. They at least addressed it because they realized that people were going to wonder. But I'm with you in that I feel like you didn't get the sense that they really had some kind of uniform policy with it.
And I will always love Frances McDormand for playing Dot in Raising Arizona. And I'm looking at her, and it was funny. I for some reason I focused on her when she went up to pick up an award. I don't think it was Best Actress. It might have been one of the Nomadland awards. She looked miserable.
Yeah,
she looked like
she really did.
Her dog off stage. I'm like, your movie that you worked so hard on, it's just getting a major award. Can you crack a smile or just look like 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 you didn't just step in that bucket? I just was weird. She gave a bizarre speech and the howling. I guess that's
which she did that. She did that the last time she won an award. So like the howling thing. It's like, okay, yeah, I remember her doing it at some point. I don't know. I don't think it was at the Oscars. And I'm like, okay, this is your thing now. But yeah, it's like her speaking for both Best Picture and Best Actress. You're like, oh yeah, that part really was perfect for you because you're such a weirdo. We sort of touched on it within terms of the sort of mixed signals on the masks. Was there relief that in not having the comedy segment up top, that we weren't hit over the head with politics like we so often are in award shows? Did you find some relief in that, or would that have actually been more interesting than the show that we were given?
But Regina King went political right away.
Yeah.
So I think he didn't get the benefit of sort of that apolitical moment or intro. I mean, she's a talented lady and she's beautiful and she's regal and that's great. So I just didn't. It's just I have to say, within 10 minutes of watching the show, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to be the format. These meandering anecdotes. They're all sitting in a room. it just I felt I had so little expectation for this night, and I felt
Yeah.
that molecule of expectation just rushing out of my pores. Like they
Yeah.
got nothing. They got nothing, right? I mean, because if you don't open with something fun or crazy or interesting or clever, it pretty much means you don't have much left in the tank. And they didn't. It was just
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I mean it would take up so much of the show, but Billy Crystal used to do the film segments and then the monologue, and then the years that you had Steve Martin and then Steve Martin and Alec Baldwin, it seemed like, let's put it this way, this is the first year where I think a lot of people who did actually watch were like, I am so glad I'm not in that room. Whereas usually you're like, could you imagine being at the Oscars?
yeah.
I mean, I've been at the Emmys, and God, I'd love to be at the Oscars. Not this one. I'd like to be at like a cool, like regular Oscars, not one like this.
Yeah.
It didn't win a major award, but it's an excuse because I'm not quite sure the last time you and I spoke on the show. We trade messages a lot, but winning for best visual effects was a movie I know neither of us liked, Tenet. And we have not had the opportunity to talk about Tenet. And there was a point where it was the only movie that came out, not at all of last year, because Bad Boys for Life obviously was Best Picture of 2020. But, from March onward, not a lot came out. And Tenet was one of them. And I mean, some of the visual effects, I guess, were cool, but I've seen better visual effects in other Christopher Nolan movies. What do you think worked about Tenet? I have a lot of things that I think didn't work. Visual effects was something that was kind of cool in it, but it didn't excuse the rest of it.
It gave Michael Caine a gig. I love Michael Caine. I'll watch him.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yeah.
I thought the cast was
just to interject for a second. When I put myself through the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League, I forgot Jeremy Irons was Alfred, and I expected to see Michael Caine.
Oh.
And I'm like, look, I love Jeremy Irons. He's fantastic. He's good as Alfred. But I was like, oh, this should have been Michael Caine. So I'm sorry, you mentioned that. It just reminded me of that. But sorry, what were you saying?
No, I did. The cast was great. And, I struggle with Inception, and I watched it a couple times after that. And I kind of felt most of it kind of fell into place. And complex movies that really kind of tease your brain, not my forte. And you could insult me all you want after that confession. I struggled so hard to grasp Tenet, to kind of, okay, I'm getting a little lost. I don't know what's happening here. And at some point I just gave up. I just, it's one thing to be a filmmaker and to give you brain teasers and to kind of make a complicated story, but it felt almost Christopher Nolan being aggressive. Like, I'm going to confuse you, and it was funny because that was the movie that was going to save theaters and bring back the crowds. I'm thinking, I know on paper, I get it. It's Christopher Nolan, big cast. He does these event movies. I think you couldn't have picked a worse film to kind of bring people back.
Because when they did that, and by the way, what you were saying, I've talked about this before. My wife and I saw it at the drive-in. I don't know, back in September, and there's a point in the third act where she's like, I just had to stop thinking about it because I was getting so confused. And then I figured we could see if it made sense or not. Mostly not, but you get so bogged down in trying to figure out like what's happening. It's like, well, he's traveling backwards, but he's traveling forwards. And I think a lot of the casting is pretty good, but yeah, it's confusing for the sake of like, is he just messing with us? Like, is he trying to confuse us? But yeah, I felt like
it in the movie, by the way, if I recall, there were lines of dialogue saying like, "Oh, say that back to me." Like, it was almost like a meta joke. Like, I'm going to screw with you as much as I can and still get this massive paycheck and get more movie deals.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you do have to entertain us. That's like a prerequisite.
And then the fact that John David Washington doesn't have a character name, he's just the protagonist. I'm like, just call him Steve, like it's fine. But yeah, to your point that this was what was going to save movie theaters. And like, when I saw it, I'm like, this is not going to save movie theaters. What it needed to be was like Fast 9 or before I saw it, I thought Wonder Woman 1984 would have been the movie to do that because people were so excited for it. But then I saw it and I'm like, okay, yeah, that was not going to save movie theaters. I still haven't seen the Black Widow movie, but I feel like, because it hasn't come out, I feel like a blockbuster was what was going to do it. And as much as I've seen like a half an hour of one Fast and Furious movie, I feel like I get it. I completely understand how successful those movies are. I think if a Fast and Furious movie had come out last fall, movie theaters probably would have, at least for those moments, been fine. But I guess the idea is stringing your release calendar together. And now with Fast and Furious, they're saying like it comes out in June now. And they're like, yeah, come back. Come see your family, your friends from Fast 9. Come see this. And I'm like, well, yeah, don't put it on a streaming service and people will probably go see it. You know, sorry, what were you going to say?
I think generally speaking, and this is not overtly political, maybe it delves into a little bit, but I feel like Hollywood almost had a responsibility to get people back into theaters, to make PSAs like, listen, it's safer now. Your neighborhood theater is doing all the protocols. We want you back. We miss you. Come back to the theater. I feel like there was a ripe moment in the culture where celebrities can kind of lay down the politics and just say, hey guys, the pandemic was awful. We've all been hurting, but let's go back to the movies and make that sort of a cause celeb in a way. And not only did that not happen, I think one of the artists last night mentioned that, which I thought was cool. But I feel like a lot lot
I think it might have actually been Frances McDormand saying, right. Go back to the movies, you know, But
I think a lot of the messaging at it, especially late night. I mean, late night was basically mocking people who were upset at the lockdowns and saying how dumb they were, and then this whole mask on, mask off, and oh, Dr. Fauci knows what he's doing, even though he changes his wisdom every 5 minutes. I mean, I feel like Hollywood played a small part in keeping people out of theaters in a way. And then the industry said, oh, we're going to put everything on streaming because we want to make a quick buck. Well, that's going to change the culture where we expect the stuff to be on streaming and we don't need to go to the theater. Yeah. You change behaviors after a whole year. That's a game changer, man. I just feel like we've spent a year getting all the great stuff at home. And now we're going to just switch gears and go back to the theater and hire a babysitter and pay the bad popcorn fees and sit through Drek. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I think that there are going to be a lot of people. I think it was honestly the problem is that it was already trending in this direction for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so then this was the excuse. And, look, and it's the problem when you have these huge multinational corporations. I'm not railing against corporations in general, but in terms of the movie business, I am. Because do you think that Warner Brothers Film Studio wanted all those movies for me to be able to watch it on my phone? That's not what they wanted. Do you think that Business Affairs wants to have to cut deals with every director who has profit participation now that they're giving those movies away? And I have seen these Warner Brothers movies that have come out as part of this plan. And it's Wonder Woman 1984. It's a movie called The Little Things with Denzel Washington and Jared Leto, which I don't know if you saw. It's not very good. It's not awful. It's just not great. Tom and Jerry, which here's the thing about Tom and Jerry. You know what you should do if you make a Tom and Jerry movie? Put a lot of Tom and Jerry in it. And somehow they missed that memo. Godzilla versus King Kong. Put a lot of Godzilla fighting King Kong. No, you don't want to do that? Okay, fine. And then knowing what I was getting myself into, I went and saw Mortal Kombat at the drive-in over the weekend. And so all these movies that they're just giving away, I'm like, well, yeah, they should give them away. These movies should be free in our house. But when you start to get like the great movies, we'll see. And, I mean, a film that won 2 Academy Awards for Disney Plus was Soul, which I thought was a good Pixar movie, but it wasn't like they gave away Toy Story 5. You know what I mean? I think that it was a very calculated move. They saw like, here's the ceiling on what that's going to make in the theater. Let's just put it out so everybody can see it. And I think that it'll be interesting to see, we talked about Fast and Furious. That's going to come out in theaters, but what's the window where it's exclusively in theaters? How long is that going to last? The James Bond movie, Sony would have loved, I think they wanted Apple to pay $1 billion. And they're like, I mean, we like James Bond, but not $1 billion, So I guess we'll see. There's movie theaters are open here. I know I have friends who went, and all I'll say without naming anyone, the friends that I see who are going, who couldn't stay away from Mortal Kombat, were only a few months ago talking about how they were so upset that movie theaters were opening again. And why are you putting these movies out in theaters? But as soon as it was something that they wanted to see, they got excited. And I think that that's what's going to happen. When all this stuff comes out, there's going to be something that everybody wants to see.
Well, I think that I think with Hollywood, and it's tough because it's hard to to make a movie in 6 months, 12 months. It's a whole process. But I think that Hollywood is going to have to up their game for the theatrical releases to make not just a video game tie-in movie like Mortal Kombat, but make a genuinely good film where you go to the theater and go, boy, that was good. Like if I go to the theater in a month and a half and I see 2 to 3 duds in a row, I'm like, I'm staying home, man. Streaming for me. You need to really bring it and remind us why we're in theaters. And,
because even if movies aren't available online, there's how many shows do you feel like, oh, instead of going out to the movie theater, I could catch up on 3 episodes of this show that I actually know I really like.
Yeah.
So I think that giving us a reason to go to the movie theater is probably the most important part. And unfortunately, their thinking is that, well, the way to get you to go out to the movie theater is to, reboot this property or, a continuation of that. And I don't know. I think there aren't a lot of things that I'm super excited for, but I know that the Black Widow movie has like 30 minutes in IMAX. So I'm like, well, I think I would like to see that was supposed to come out, I think, next weekend. As recently as like 2 months ago, it was going to come out next weekend. Yeah. And I was wrong about that because I'm like, Disney is not going to eat into any of their Marvel money, but I don't know. And I guess when they do that premiere access for Disney Plus, where you spend an extra $30, they probably still make some decent money that way. I mean, they did that for Mulan, and I think actually I don't know if they are doing that for the Cruella de Vil movie with Emma Stone. Yeah, so
I think one of the issues that the Oscars brings up is they keep saying that, well, these are niche films, these are specialty films, art house films, and I think that's mostly right. But I think Hollywood maybe has forgotten how to make mainstream movies that kind of straddle the line, like The Little Things should have been that straddle the line movie.
Yeah,
it's adult, mature storytelling, but it's something accessible to all. And I think the one I kind of gravitate back to is The King's Speech, which
that's a great example.
Like an art house movie, but it made over 100 million. I'm pretty sure it won Best Picture, and it was really enjoyable and uplifting, and anyone can kind of buy into it. And I feel like Hollywood is maybe struggling to make that kind of product now.
Yeah, I think that it is harder to make something like The King's Speech on that level. And I don't know what the budget was on Nomadland, but I'm sure it didn't cost a lot to put together. I mean, all you had to do was swing by Jiffy Lube a few times and clean out the vans in the movie. But
they can't afford the bucket for the sequel, by the way. It's already asking.
Well, if the bucket gets its own movie, I'm there. Our friend Dominica Saxon, I can't believe I'm late. I took a vacation day just for this episode. What are you doing? Come on. I tweeted it out yesterday. Pay attention. No, but we're glad you're here. So I think that the movie going experience going forward, it'll be interesting. I grew up with a drive-in in like a town over for me. So there was a lot of movies like Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. That's a movie that I saw at the drive-in for the first time. And unfortunately also Star Trek V the same summer, as much as I love Star Trek. But and I like it as an experience. I think there are drawbacks to it, but there's drawbacks to being in the movie theater as well. And as long as there's still some kind of reduced capacity, this is the time to go to the movie theater. We're taking the kids to Disneyland in the middle of May because we really wanted to go when it's at 25%, because we're like, that sounds so pleasant, to have so many less people there. But I don't know. And, the question as it comes up, what I'm waiting for, and as someone who reviews films, Christian, I'm sure you can agree. I want screenings to come back. I want to like go on the Disney lot and see the Black Widow movie for free. That's really what I want more than anything else. And I feel like we're not that close to that. I think that what we will get are screenings in the big movie theaters, and they figure out how to do that. I've done that a few times for films. Do you think that how close we are to getting to see some of the, when do I get to see free movies, Christian? No, but when do you think that part of the business makes sense? I mean, you're taking on a liability of, having people sit in the theater that you're encouraging them to go and see your movie, whereas like you can just send a link, I mean, I watched a great documentary about putting Sesame Street together in 1969, and I had that link in like a minute from the time I asked for it, so it's so much easier to do that, right?
Yeah, I've seen one. I think Tenet was my one and only screening at a theater in the last 12 months. And I enjoy going to theaters. Well, so for me, I don't understand that the screenings that are happening in Denver here are just critics in this massive theater. So I mean, you're as socially distanced as humanly possible. You're going to wear a mask. How is that more dangerous than walking to the Walmart and bumping into people online?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know. But yeah, I have to say, I'm getting used to the whole link thing. And I saw Wonder Woman 1984 with a link, and movies that I know I would never get a screening link to, I'm now getting screening links to. So selfishly, I kind of adjusted. Like, I don't have to leave my house. I don't have to, it just seems easier.
Yeah. No, I mean,
and kids go to sleep as opposed to, I can watch it on my own terms in a sense. So
yeah. And Disney, they sent out, I got screeners for screening links for Mulan and the Raya, whatever that dragon movie was. And they, well, not a year ago, but 2 years ago, 18 months ago, they would not have sent those out as links. That would have been, you have to come and watch it. Yeah. And we're going to take your phone away too, by the way. So if they want to give me if they want to give me Black Widow so I can watch it early, I will. But I still, I'm like, no, but like a movie like that is so much more fun to see the action sequences, especially because they shot some of it in IMAX. So I don't quite know where we're headed with the with the movie industry. I know a lot of people who are going back, and I don't know anyone who's gone. And look, I live in Los Angeles. I think people would speak out if they felt. I don't know anybody who's gone and felt like, oh, I went, but I had to leave because I didn't feel safe. Nobody's said that. My wife prefers that I continue to wait before I go, and there hasn't been a movie that I feel like I need to make a case for, but I've told her like Black Widow's it, so July. But yeah, I mean, honestly, if I had to watch Mortal Kombat indoors in a theater where I couldn't talk to my friend and make fun of it the whole time, it would have been a much less pleasant night than I had. And here's the thing with movies like that, it's like, no, a movie like that's not going to be great, but a movie like that, a movie like King Kong versus Godzilla, it's like, why do you make people wait so much for the thing that they want? Like, Mortal Kombat's a video game where people fight, and there's like one like sort of half fight in the first hour, and then the fights that you want to see, the matchups between characters, that's in the second hour, and then they're working on setting up like a Mortal Kombat expanded universe, and I'm like, I don't do that. Just have more fighting. I literally even said to my friend Rob that I saw it with at one point, their characters were talking about, some kind of conflict. I was like, boy, do you think that maybe they could settle this with some Mortal Kombat? But no, they didn't. They just talked about it.
Damn that diplomacy.
Yeah, I know. So
you set up a movie franchise and an extended universe, you make a really good first movie. Yeah. And then you can do anything you want. You don't have to lay the groundwork. Just make a good movie, draw a whole bunch of people into the movie, make it so darn popular that they think, I want an expanded universe. Make it happen. That's how you do it.
Right, exactly. Just make the first one, It's so I don't know. There's a couple of the movies that were nominated, to circle back to the Oscars. There's a few that I am interested in still. Dominicus Jackson chimed in on this. I love theaters, but I'd rather spend $20 on demand, watch it 6 times with a dozen people, and make my own air pop or popcorn. I understand that completely. Yeah, I understand that thinking. And look, a lot of people feel that way. And even when it's like not the dual release movies, when it is the you'll have to wait. In some cases, it's only like 3-4 weeks movies will, like I want to. I'd like to see that movie with Bob Odenkirk called Nobody. I've heard some good things about that. But I instead of going to the movie theater, I could watch it at home for $20, and I just have to think like, do I want to spend that much money on Saul Goodman fighting people? But it's so yeah. But I think a lot of viewing habits have changed, as we said before. They have already changed. And then there is this thing that a lot of theater chains are doing, where you can just rent out the whole theater for you and like 20 friends.
I love that. If they can make that work, I love that idea.
Yeah, I would. I'm definitely like, see, but I'll do it, but in the way where I'm going to hit everybody up, because I'm like, all right, so you owe $4 if you want to come. No, maybe I'll do it for an event. But are there any of the movies? And we talked about how they didn't really show clips. Is there anything that you feel intrigued by? They're like, I am kind of interested in what this is. Any of these movies, whether they won or not, but they were talked about last night, that you're like, I'd like to check out this one or two that I didn't see.
Not really. I mean, I think I was lucky enough to have access to almost all of them through different screeners and discs and stuff like that. And the stuff I wanted to see, I kind of saw already. I really don't have a lot of excitement for what's going on. And it's funny, you mentioned before, it's easier to kind of stay home and watch stuff you like. We've been just rampaging through Modern Family, which is so good and so joyous and so funny. And I want to hug every cast member. They're so lovable in their own weird way. Maybe Julie Bone, a little longer hug, but that's
just a little bit. Yeah.
Well, I'm like, I can stay home and just be dazzled by that, and then know that there's like 18 more episodes I could watch if I wanted to. So, as opposed to going to the theater, it's a real crapshoot, and I don't know.
Yeah, because I mean, even normal times pre-pandemic, I'm with you. Like, seeing a couple of bad movies in the theater, it's like, oof, I gotta be a little bit more selective. And is there anything coming, whether it's going to be streaming, dual release? Is there anything that is on the horizon that you're legitimately like, oh, I think this will be good, or even, oh, I hope this will be good?
Well, Black Widow, I love Scarlett Johansson in that role. It seems like the MCU can do no wrong for the most part. I think that the final Daniel Craig movie, the No Time to Die, the James Bond film, I want him to go out on a high note.
Yeah,
I want that franchise to be healthy. So I'm selfishly hoping it's great. I like a world where there's a new James Bond movie every 3 years, and it sort of changes a little bit with the times, but it kind of keeps the DNA intact. That I want that selfishly. And you mentioned the Fast and Furious movies. I love that formula. It's down to they've got it down to a molecule. It's a little bit of family talk, insane action, over the top, a very likable cast, very diverse. It just seems that it knows exactly what it does well, and it does it well. That's all I want. It's
Yeah, no, I mean, I can appreciate it for what it is, success-wise.
Yeah, it's not over-ambitious. It doesn't explore new topics. I don't want new topics. I want that franchise to be The Rock and Vin Diesel looking ageless, and the tracking shot of the attractive woman from the heel to the derriere. That's like part of the shtick. Like you got that sort of ogling shot. At least one per,
Our pal Jason Blair pops in. I actually caught the Bladtcast live. Woohoo! What I missed? Almost all of it. Yeah, I mean, you missed us telling you that you didn't miss anything by not watching the Academy Awards.
Yeah, I'm a terrible parent for making my kids watch Borat. Done.
Yeah, well, and the second one. I think you're more of a terrible parent because you had them watch the second one. But it's we were sort of talking about parenting. There haven't been a lot of kids movies released in the last year, and one of them, a lot of them were released dual releases. But we took the first time we really went out was we took the kids to the drive-in to see the Trolls movie, the Trolls sequel, which is it's fine for kids. We took them to see Tom and Jerry, which the kids liked, and I'm like, you know what, I can pick it apart if I really want to, but if the kids had fun with it, then job well done. But Jason needs to make sure we know Tom and Jerry was garbage. Yeah, but did your kids like it? Because I asked my son Felix, I'm like, well, what did you like about it? He's like, he liked like the little tornadoes where the animals would fight, like, the old cartoon tornadoes. And I'm like, yeah, you got a couple of those. I don't think he's going to, the kids don't watch it in a way of like, why did somebody put Colin Jost in this movie?
Here's a quick question for you as a dad.
Which is a very valid question, by the way. Yeah.
So my kids don't care about movies. They don't watch many movies. Yeah. I almost have to bribe them to watch movies. They like their YouTube. They like their video games. And I feel like it's super anecdotal, but I'm starting to, and I think there was a poll recently saying that the young sort of Generation Z, not into movies at all. Like, it's just not their thing. Do you find that your kids want to go to the theater, or do they prefer shorter stuff?
They like to go to my son's 5, so he likes to go to the theater in the same way that he likes to go to a baseball game, because he knows that he's going to eat popcorn. And at the baseball game, he's also going to get a hot dog and ice cream. We just try to space it out to keep him interested. But my son likes it more than my daughter. She's only 3. Literally just yesterday, we showed them Monsters, Inc. He loved it. She kind of gets tired and doesn't like to keep watching a movie after a while. But she would watch Toy Story 3 every weekend if we would let her. So, and it's Toy Story 3 in particular. That's the one that she likes. He likes Toy Story 4, but we negotiate peace and we come together. So we don't show them a lot of movies, mostly just because it's like, if they're going to have like 90 minutes to 2 hours of TV time, I'd rather spread it out a couple of key points during the day where I need them to, watch a half hour of this, a half hour of that. But I think in general, they like seeing movies. But, my daughter was so little the last time we took her to a movie. We went to the last movie that they saw in person indoors was it was a press screening at the Disney Theater in Hollywood for the movie Onward, which was I think it was Pixar. I forget sometimes the Disney and Pixar movies, it's hard to tell anymore. Yeah. Like Wreck-It Ralph was a Disney movie, but I thought it should have been a Pixar movie. So ever since then I get confused. And my son liked it enough, but it was a little old for them. So, I don't know. I think if it's the right movie, they'll like it, but my daughter's probably going to want to run around the theater. So, that creates a problem in terms of actually watching something that long. If it's good, they'll like it. Like my son didn't get tired, didn't want to know when Monsters, Inc. was going to be over, because it's a great kids movie, Yeah. Watching Tom and Jerry at the drive-in, though, he said the thing that I mentioned is, when are Tom and Jerry coming back? And I'm like, yes, exactly. When are Tom and Jerry coming back? Chloe Grace Moretz is great in a lot of things, but it's like, I don't need her storyline in this at all. And Jason Blair has triplets, God bless him. His kids watch YouTube videos of kids playing video games.
Same.
Yeah, they don't even play video games. They just watch other people play them. Yeah, I had a parent friend asking to try to find videos that her kids could watch of people playing Minecraft where it wasn't, I think it was Minecraft, where it wasn't annoying and loud. And every comment was, those don't exist. So
here's my impression of every video my boys watch. Hey guys, it starts with the same.
Yeah, hey guys. Yeah.
And they're always over emoting and they're always screaming as if the world is ending, but it's not really ending.
Yeah. So I think with my kids being little, I think I'm just trying to be careful about showing them stuff, because if I show them a movie that they don't like, that's going to be a problem, Yeah. And my son's 5, I can get pretty, I certainly had seen Star Wars by the time I was his age. I'm sort of like, I want him to be able to appreciate it, and I don't want to lose him,
Yeah.
So I want to make sure that I do these things right, and it's like, so like I'll show them like Spider-Man cartoons from when I was a kid from the early 80s, because those are on Disney Plus. And those are good for both of them, because although my daughter hated Dr. Doom and kept yelling and saying that I don't like him. I'm like, you're supposed to not like him. So well done that the scary guy in the metal mask you don't like. He doesn't like you either. So, it's a careful sort of thing to figure out what's right for them. And the reason why I brought this up is that Raya movie, my wife and I actually watched it first because we had a feeling it was too much for even a 5-year-old. I think it's good for like a 7 or 8-year-old, definitely an 8-year-old. And I don't know, there was like a Scooby-Doo movie that came out that I'm like, if my kid needs to watch Scooby-Doo, we'll watch the ultimate Scooby-Doo story of all time when they teamed up with the Harlem Globetrotters. Let's get the classics. Oh, I do. I do have that on DVD. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kiss Meets Scooby Doo. I haven't. I actually haven't shown him that one yet. Now you've reminded me. But
Daddy, his
yeah,
tongue is so long.
yeah, right, exactly. Jason Blair also has this. My kids fight over Star Wars. The boys' favorite is Episode 4, but my daughter's favorite is Revenge of the Sith. They end up screaming over the remote. Yeah, well, the fact that your daughter prefers Revenge of the Sith means that perhaps you should have some kind of intervention with her and just try to figure out what it is about Hayden Christensen that she finds so watchable. But yeah, look, I think and that is part of the problem. It's like finding the thing that both. What's the? You don't have to talk about the age of your kids, but what's the range? How far apart are they?
About 2, and they're 10 and 12 now.
Yeah. Okay. So that's, but see, and that's a good range. I think my daughter being 3, there's just a lot of stuff she doesn't like.
Yeah.
There's shows she likes where episodes are too scary for her. She likes the show on Disney called Mirror the Royal Detective. She likes to do that, and she tries to solve mysteries herself, like her show or her character on the show, which is cute. But then if there's like one with like a ghost in it, I'm like, but the ghost isn't real. It doesn't matter. I'm like, all right, I get it. You're 3, yeah. And again, Jason's right. Scooby-Doo needs more Phyllis Diller, and maybe his daughter just loves the smell of burnt flesh, which that's
and Rip Taylor.
And Rip Taylor. But yeah, and I don't know what's coming out in terms of the kids' movies, so I don't know when I would bring them back to the theater. A lot of this stuff comes out. I mentioned that Scooby-Doo movie that came out. I think that was actually streaming only. I don't even think that went to the drive-in. So I don't know. I gotta get me back into the theater, and then I'll work on getting the kids in. But the Disney theater that they have, the El Capitan in Hollywood, it's a nice presentation. Somebody plays the Wurlitzer beforehand. And of course there's a Disney store attached. So I think that there would be, it needs to be the right thing. And I don't know what Disney has coming out, but I'll tell you, when I'm at Disneyland, if they have a movie coming out at any time in the near future, they're going to make sure I know about it.
That's right.
So I'll be ready.
They're not shy.
Yeah. Well, Christian, thank you for continuing our Oscars tradition, where the tradition continues that we usually end up talking about other movies about halfway through. But where can people find you, and what can they find at your website?
Well, the website is HollywoodInToto.com. I am a right of center person, so I cover Hollywood from that perspective, but hopefully I do it in a way that will not scare people left of center screaming from the hills. Also, I contribute to the Daily Wire, JustTheNews.com, Real Clear Investigations, and I am this week wrapping up my first book about woke Hollywood. So it's going to be a few months before it hits the bookshelves, but I think it'll be interesting.
Do you think that there's a chance that by the time the book comes out, Hollywood will still be woke, or do you think that perhaps that'll be a passing fancy?
I think if wokeness is gone by the time my book hits shelves, I will be happy as a clam.
You'll be like, you know what? I'm glad nobody's buying my book.
My work is done here.
Yeah. Christian, HollywoodInToto.com, and what is with everybody? Corby's like, dang it, I just got here. Don't stop now. Come on. It's as soon as it ends, you can just start the link over. You guys can all watch it on YouTube or Facebook, or wherever you're watching. It starts over. So Hollywood In Toto is also your Twitter, so if people want to interact with you there. And as it says on the screen, I'm at Christian DMZ, and you can find me there on Twitter and Instagram. And of course, the Bladtcast is at BLADTCAST, Twitter, Instagram, Bladtcast.com for all of our episodes. And I have multiple shows on the Bladtcast YouTube channel. So make sure you subscribe, or as the videos that Christian shows his kids probably says, smash that like button and subscribe. But thanks to Christian. Thanks to everybody in the chat, even people that are showing up right now. We appreciate it. Thanks to everybody, and we'll see you next time on the